Everybody, hey, what is going on? Welcome to, you're on the American Sci-Fi Classics track, and this is Dragon Con Goes Virtual. It's Labor Day weekend. You don't have anything to do with family or work or responsibilities. Just enjoy a lovely look back into the archives of awesomeness with the irregulars from needlessthingssite.com, and I will let you guys do your thing.
All right. Thank you, Joe Crow. My name is Dave West. I'm the owner and operator of needlessthingspodcast.com, where you can find all the best podcasts. Yes, yeah. And we are here to take a look back. We do a special flashback panel every year. And this year, we are looking back at 1990. And joining me for this panel are our special guests. I'll start to my, oh man, I don't know which way this is going to be. This is weird. that way.
That one is Noel, I think.
Yes, it would be Noel.
Hi. I'm Noel Wood. I am the owner of dorkdroppings.com, the seldomly updated dorkdroppings.com. I also co-host the Audible Interlude podcast, a podcast about G.I. Joe, along with this guy, Dave, on the Needless Things Network. So I'll take it
to Noel's right?
Yes.
It's me. Hey. Yes. I'm Rebeccah Wood, counterpart to that one right there. I don't do any podcasts, but I like to make faces, and I like 1990 a whole lot. The 80s and the 90s were my childhood and young adulthood. So I'm always happy to do these things with Dave and friends, and it's a great time. So here I am.
And then, we're below right here.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I am Nicole. I am one of the Needless Commentary irregulars with that guy. and also that guy. That guy? Wait, no, that guy. This is very confusing.
We should stop this. We should really stop.
Because what if an hour about how I don't know where to move my hand to?
What if they format this differently and we're in different positions?
Oh my god! And we just look like complete idiots.
We'll look like complete morons.
Anyway,
we don't want that.
No. I am Nicole from the Needless Commentary team, also from Caught Dead Watching, which has been on hiatus because 2020 has been a bit of a bugger, but we'll be coming back soon. So, yay.
And finally, joining us is a very special guest, a man who loves Dragon Con, but usually just can't be there because there's so many people.
It's true. It's very peoply. Hey guys, my name's Arian.
Hi, Arian.
Sometimes I hang out on podcasts with Dave and say dumb stuff about things. So that's pretty much what I do.
That sums it up. That's great.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is go around the panel here, and we're each going to share something we love about 1990. We're going to see how far we get. Usually it's a couple of great things. And then if we have time, there'll be one thing that's maybe not so great that we didn't love about 1990. But I'm going to go ahead and kick it off because I've been in a habit lately of being terrified somebody's going to grab my first pick, especially for 1990. So I am going to begin. Ring the bell. School's back in. If you don't know, that is an indication that I'm going to talk about the classic jam, You Can't Touch This.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so
solid.
In 1990, I was way into metal. I was way into, really just way into metal. But like on the down low, I listened to pop music. Everybody listened to pop music because we were all watching MTV. We were all listening to the same radio stations. There was a cultural awareness back then that you kind of don't have now. And You Can't Touch This was it was this inescapable, huge atomic bomb of a song by MC Hammer, obviously, sampling Rick James' Super Freak, which I didn't really have an awareness of at the time. All I knew was it was this really catchy song with this guy rapping over the top of it, being pretty positive, pretty good flow. But the video, I think, is what really, really caught us all.
The Hammer Pants.
Well, and that's it. That Hammer, to this day, Hammer Pants. Please, Hammer, don't hurt them. So many different things. Stop. Hammer Time. And people who weren't even alive in 1990 know that reference. It's huge. And seeing that video where he looks like some kind of like funky genie dancing around, and the Hammer dance is the one that everybody sort of talks about, where he's kind of got his legs apart and scrambling back and forth across a stage or whatever. But there's so much more dancing than just that in this video. They're hot dancing girls in workout gear, which at the time was very stimulating to young Dave. There's a series of shots, because the video goes back and forth between sort of a small studio stage and then out behind what I can only assume is a gym, because everybody in the video is in like tight fitting spandex workout clothes with neon highlights. And there are these segments of like black and white, but the neon is still in color. Ladies dancing on the stairs. Just very, very visually stimulating, exciting video. So that you hear the song 20 times a day on the radio station, but you never get sick of it. You see the video on MTV all the time. I absolutely loved this song. Didn't talk about loving this song, but I loved this song. And now that I'm older and wiser, I can admit it. What are you guys' memories of Hammer Time?
Pretty much the same. It was one of the first rap songs that I bought the single to. Remember cassette singles, kid?
Singles.
Yes. In the cardboard
Kids
sleeve.
don't remember that.
I had so many of those.
But so what usually happened when I was a kid and I discovered new music was I'd tell my dad about it, because I wanted my dad's approval. So I told my dad about, and my dad was, and probably still is, cooler than me. So I told my dad about this new awesome music I heard called rap, and played him You Can't Touch This, and he's like, he listened to album 88 and they played like underground hip hop on that. So he's like, oh, that's crap. You should listen to Third Base and the Disposable Heroes of Hipocrisy. And then made fun of me for listening to Hammer.
That's so sad.
There you go.
I had a similar experience sharing hip hop with my dad. Not quite the same conversation, but it ended the same way. You're stupid for listening to that.
Yeah.
I was a fan of MC Hammer from watching MTV Raps before this, and this was his big mainstream breakthrough song. So it kind of made all the people around me who listened to more underground, obscure music think that MC Hammer was some flash in the pan pop star. I was like, no. Have you heard "Turn This Mother Out"?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's true.
Well, and he performed "You Can't Touch This" on Arsenio at the tail end of '89, before "Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him" even came out, and it just didn't. It was just him doing a song nobody had heard on Arsenio. So like it was cool, but it didn't catch fire like it did once the video and the album came out.
And sadly, the first #1 rap single in America
was not that one.
Was not this, but it did happen in the same year. You know what it was?
Yeah.
Ice Baby.
You are correct. Ding, ding.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember. I'm the same way. Like I discovered all of my like rap through YoMTV Raps, and pretty much at that time in my life discovered most of my music through MTV. And the same thing. Like I tried to be super tough girl, but was totally into like these really catchy pop songs. I mean, like, how could you not love that song? It
Well, they're
like
pop
right now
songs
I'm
for a
singing
reason.
it in my head. Exactly. You know, it's great.
Well, the hook from it is iconic because it's
Yeah.
you know, it's Super Freak, and Super Freak's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and clearly it goes beyond being iconic because, like I said, I had no familiarity with that song at the time, but that hook still got me. So there's
I
just
didn't either, but
pure
like,
great songwriting.
you know, is Dave Chappelle / Rick James would say later, you know, blank is a hell of a blank. So there you go.
PG-13, folks.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you can say cocaine and drug in PG-13. You just don't recommend them.
You just
Okay.
can't show yourself.
Don't do
doing
them.
it. Yeah.
They're bad.
Right.
Moxie says, "Don't do drugs, kids."
When he says a hell of
hi,
a drug,
Moxie.
he means it's really a bad drug. It's bad.
That's right.
Very bad.
All right. Any last thoughts about You Can't Touch This?
It's still in commercials for Cheetos right now, so clearly it's got some long-lasting effects.
There you go.
It
There you go.
stood the test of time.
Yes.
All right. Well, stop. Noel time.
All right.
Noel, it's your turn.
So, I would feel silly if I didn't get to be the person to use this one because I dressed for the occasion. I'm wearing my Packard Sawmill shirt, and if you know that reference, you know where I'm going to go with this because in
This
April
one's
of
on my list, but I
1990
knew somebody was going to take it.
Yeah, April of 1990, I was 14 years old. I was just kind of discovering different types of art, and then one night I just watched something on ABC called Twin Peaks, and it introduced me to the wacky world of David Lynch. It was like nothing that had ever been on television before. It's it was a murder mystery, but it was also a soap opera and a supernatural thriller and a little bit of like surrealistic comedy with a whole bunch of wacky characters and then it. Of course, if you don't know anything about the show, it lasted 2 seasons. It was about the murder of a homecoming queen named Laura Palmer, and they resolved that at the beginning of the 2nd season. And then it goes into some weird soap opera stuff that just falls off a cliff until David Lynch, who had been essentially kicked off the show in the 1st season, comes back and takes it back from Mark Frost and does the craziest series finale of any television series you'd ever seen. And I say series, which is not entirely true because 3 years ago they brought it back and they did a 3rd season, which is one of the most mind-screwing things you could ever possibly watch. It was I watched it with my girlfriend at the time. We were hooked every single night, or every single week when it was on, and then it just faded away. I'm actually surprised it lasted 2 seasons, considering how just out there it was.
How weird it was, yeah.
It was bonkers.
Second season in 1990 was mind blowing.
So, do you remember what it was about? Because I have tried many times to get into Twin Peaks, and it's been a false start every time. And there's other stuff David Lynch has done that I love, but for some reason, Twin Peaks eludes me. Do you remember, like, the moment it got its hooks into you?
Well, it starts off with a really good hook with the body washing up at the sawmill. It's really when Dale Cooper enters the pictures a few episodes in that he's just one of the most just one of the most intriguing characters in television history. So he's really what hooked me. I'd watched the first few episodes and I was interested, but when he shows up, it's when it really starts getting really awesome.
Same.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that this is a damn fine cup of coffee.
Damn fine cup of coffee.
True.
I agree. For me, it was Log Lady. She was my most endearing.
Oh my God, yes.
Log Lady, super weird.
So
And
much.
I introduced Rebeccah to Twin Peaks right before the new season came out. We went through the first two seasons and Firewalk with Me, which is a whole different year's episode.
Yeah.
There were definitely
sorry.
No, that's okay. It's always a delay, There were some parts that I swear hypnotized me, literally. Like, I've lost parts of time watching that show. Just David Lynch has an amazing ability to do that. It's like And again, we don't recommend drugs, but watching the show is kind of what I like. So I absolutely loved it, and yeah, give me some lady anytime.
Yeah, the cast is amazing. With wacky characters like that, but like Ray Wise is just
he's incredible.
So creepy. Jack Nance is probably he plays one of my favorite characters in the show. He's just so like lovable, and everybody just can't you can't dislike that character.
Yeah, I mean, like that was right around the time that I started becoming interested in girls as something other than people to torment. And I remember having a huge crush on Sherilyn Fenn, who played Audrey.
Well, Sherilyn Fenn, Laura Flynn Boyle, Machinomic were all like my dream girls when I was 15 years old.
Yeah. They were so sexy and beautiful. I remember being like how could any girl ever be this gorgeous? Did anybody else? Sorry. I
was just going to say the way that
Laura
that
Palmer's
show.
Diary.
Oh yeah,
I did read that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which was insane, but there you go.
It was glorious. Yeah, it was really weird. Sorry,
just from what I've seen of the show, it seemed to me like it treated the female characters almost like the starlets of the 50s. Like they had this glamour and this innate.
That's a typical motif, for lack of a better term, in Lynch's stuff. Like you see that in Mulholland Drive, you see that in.
But they're also very, very incredibly flawed, all of them. Like, of course, you start off with the character of Laura Palmer, and she's the homecoming queen. She's the popular girl. She's the princess, but she's not really, as you learn from watching the show.
Yeah, and Audrey is so beautiful and glamorous, but so damaged and just messed up. We'll say messed up.
Yeah.
All right, Twin Peaks. At some point, I know I will have my magical Twin Peaks experience, and it'll be the right time. But now the time to move on to Rebeccah. What is your first pick from 1990?
This is hard. 1990 was such a good year. But I'm going to go with a musical number as well. Something that really everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. Just shaped my younger years. But those Wilson Phillips girls, man, #1 song of 1990. Just absolutely love them. Two of them being daughter of Boys, Brian Wilson, and the other one being a progeny of the Carpenters or Mamas and Papas.
Mamas and Papas.
Yeah.
So they were just bound for fame, and then it was like 2 years that they were in the spotlight rather, and then poof, it was just like all three of them decided to do different things, and they're still well known in the community. They're still out there performing, but that song was just like it was an anthem. It was a girl anthem. I think it's rated like number 15 on the top like women rock songs of all time, or like women-led songs of all time. What movie was it in recently with the two guys that were riding in the car?
Harold and Kumar.
No, it was in something else.
Huh?
There was something else where two guys were in the car singing it.
Yeah, it was like red, and then 2 seconds later, they're all like, "Someday somebody's gonna make you want to."
Harold and Kumar.
No. Something more recent. It was in something more recent than that.
Like I Love You Man or something like that. It was like two bros and whatever. It's just a song that makes everybody's heart go, "Brah, yes, I can do anything." And I remember walking around with my mom's Walkman and the single. And just like stomping around the house singing that song, and my mom would just laugh at me. It was between that and Paula Abdul. It was a done deal.
Paula Abdul.
What was that song?
Which one?
Straight Up Now Tell Me.
Straight Up Now Tell Me. Oh my God, I blanked out.
Cold-Hearted Snake.
Oh my gosh.
Opposite Attract.
Paula was huge.
I was deeply in love with Paula Abdul.
Who was it? She's amazing.
We all were.
Yeah.
It's true.
It wasn't like a huge voice talent either. She was a fantastic dancer, but she's she's got like a baby voice. Why are we talking about Paula Abdul?
Because she's incredible.
Yeah, I get it, but this is 1990, so
Next year when we're back live and in person at DragonCon, the Paula Abdul panel will happen. On the classics track.
Yes.
Can we get her as a guest?
MC Scat Cat will be in the house.
She'll be live.
And Arsenio Hall.
And Arsenio Hall.
Opposites Attract, except it was released in '89. I think I talked about it last year, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I did, because I mean that mixture of the cartoon and live action was just like, whoa. You know, it was right about the same time as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, so it wasn't like all that crazy, but it still, the music video was just so. Why are we talking about Paula Abdul?
I'll say this: Arsenio Hall is not welcome in my panels because he dissed De La Soul. So forget that guy.
That's true.
Well then.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Arian, what is your first pick for 1990?
So I had video games because that's kind of how I roll.
Surprise!
Which the one of at the time the best-selling video game ever was released in the United States in late 1990.
Oh yeah.
Towards the tail end of the 8-bit generation, which was
Preach.
Super Mario Brothers 3, which had a movie. I think The Wizard came out the same year. I'm pretty sure it came out the same year. It might have come out the following year, but yeah, Super Mario Brothers 3 was the thing. Also, 1990 was the year that the first Final Fantasy was localized to America and released. So that happened, which, 15 iterations later. Plus
But Arian, what is your pick?
Super Mario Brothers 3.
You can only have one.
Super
Super
Mario
Mario
Brothers.
Brothers 3.
I feel like I just talked about this not too long ago with somebody.
That may have happened on a recent episode. The classic classic video game Hall of Fame. We might have discussed Super Mario Brothers 3, but
We might have decided it was the greatest video game of all time.
we did. But I want to hear Arian's story. Do you remember like the release and the hype around it and everything?
Oh, yeah, it was nuts. I think I got it like a week later. I had reserved it somewhere, but like couldn't pick it up initially, and remembered calling in to make sure that they still had it, and they did. And I went in. I think it was a Sears or something stupid, which we don't have anymore. Because, why would we have those? Not that you can like really go to stores. I mean, I guess you can. Whatever.
Yeah.
In 30 years when we do the 2020 panel.
That's going to be an interesting panel.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I don't even want to do it.
What was
No.
your favorite take?
No, thank you.
I'm going to be
Let me
so
ask you-
old.
Let me ask you this though: because I feel like at the time, sort of pre-ordering or reserving video games wasn't really a thing. Was this one of the earliest
one of the
games
first
you could
ones.
do that with?
Yes, it was. It depends. Because I remember my friend reserved Legend of Zelda 2, which came out, I want to say, before this. I will consult.
It's nice to be able to look stuff up while we're here at home. I'll just say
Yeah, that came out in 87. So
I hadn't thought of this until just now, but my grandmother reserved Super Mario Brothers 3 for me, and I remember there being some kind of issue. I think it was at Toys R Us.
yeah,
And I remember there being some kind of weirdness or problem with it or something.
yeah, but it was like my next door neighbor had it like the first night, and I think he beat it before I even got to play it, which made me angry.
Ugh.
I was 13 at the time or whatever. So, with patience was not my my strong suit in those days. Not that it really is today, but yeah, it was nuts. Although you could make the argument that the raccoon suit sent lots of people on the slippery slope to freedom. We
Yeah.
won't speculate.
No judgments here. No judgments here.
That wasn't,
If you're into the Tanukis, you go right ahead.
that
True.
wasn't the best suit, though. Let me tell you, that video game shaped a lot of my childhood summers. So I didn't get it the year it came out. I was 7, I guess. I got it a couple years later, and my best friend and I spent entire summer nights playing Super Mario 3. We never beat it. I could never get past that level where the doors, you have to figure out what pattern of doors to go in.
Oh yeah.
I could never get past it. It was terrible. But everyone's like, oh, Tanuki's the best. No, the sock was the best. One where you could jump on all the little.
Oh, the boot. where you
Yeah.
stomp
Yeah.
it. Yes.
That was 100% the best costume in that game. You can fight me on it if you want to, but there's just, yeah, such a good pick. Yes.
I just remember the hype around that thing being so huge, commercials constantly, and not like the kind of crummy commercials we'd seen prior to that, like really big, high budget commercials that were on during every cartoon you watched, maybe even during some primetime stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it was, like just the commercial where they showed Mario like flying,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
kind of flying,
Yeah.
was just that was insane.
It's
Like,
the
is that-
first.
I remember
Sorry.
losing my crap totally.
Oh, it's okay. No, as I was talking with Dave on the podcast about this just a couple weeks ago. We were recording this. Everything we know about Mario now, all of the visual stuff, the way we see Mario now, it all comes from Super Mario 3, because the first Super Mario Brothers game is iconic. The second one was a disappointment to a lot of people because it was just a reskin of another game. It's still
Not to
still a
me,
great-
though.
Still a
Oh, I
great game,
That one, but you
but
can
it did.
that one too.
It doesn't feel like Mario as much as like 3 does. Like 3
Right.
really just established what Mario is to this day.
To me, it was one of the, it's the first game that I can think of that I played that when you died and ran out of lives, you didn't necessarily go all the way back to, zero, to the beginning.
Yeah.
So, you would get into the world and, it'd open up little doors and stuff like that. And if you did die or run out of lives, you could start back at the beginning of that world. So I remember just leaving my Nintendo on for days and days and days, because if you shut it off, you were screwed. But as long as you left it on, you could get, pick it back up and play on what that level that you were stuck on.
Let's hope it didn't storm.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And hope that your
Yeah.
parents didn't go, why is this stupid thing still on?
Yeah,
It's been
yeah,
on
yeah.
for a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's hours of my life. Yeah.
It's true.
I actually have it now on like an emulator and you can save it. And it's
Nice.
amazing. I can save it and turn it off. I'm like, oh, it's great.
Well, and that's the thing is like going back and playing it now, because we got the little NES classic console or whatever it's called, and all of those games are way harder now than they were then.
Oh my God, it's so hard. How did we play it?
They're harder. It's that we're older and our reflexes suck.
I know.
Well, it's that we're older and we're not used to playing games where reflexes play as much of a part as they did with the platformers of our youth. Like stuff like Ninja Gaiden and Super Mario Brothers 3 and whatever else. Like we just don't play games like that anymore. So we're old and creaky.
Yeah, it's not some mashing the buttons. It's not quite a thing that happens anymore.
No. What is a thing that happens is Nicole's turn.
Yay!
And it's going to happen now because it's Nicole's
Yay.
turn.
So I hate to be a one-trick pony, but I kind of am. So I always pick a horror movie.
Sure.
So for this one, I picked Night of the Living Dead 1990.
Yes.
The Savini remake that was not just sanctioned by Romero, but encouraged by Romero, because there had been so much bad stuff that happened with the licensing and the rights for 1968's Night of the Living Dead. Romero made no money off of it at all. And it became public domain and all this. So he was really afraid of it, being stolen. So he encouraged the remake of it, was 100% behind it, and actually they brought in Savini, and Savini thought he was going to do the effects for it, and Romero encouraged him to direct it because Savini had always been really upset that he wasn't able to be involved in the first one because he was in Vietnam at the time. He was a war photographer in Vietnam, which is kind of how he got so good at the gooey stuff.
Yeah.
But so Romero was like, no, you're going to direct. Now I've seen interviews or read interviews with Savini saying that it was an absolute nightmare. Because apparently there was a lot of like whenever Romero wasn't around, there was a lot of fighting between Savini and the producers and things like that. So it didn't end up quite being his vision, but he said it's about 40-ish% his vision, but there was some issues with it. But in some ways, it's kind of a shot-for-shot remake. Of course, the ending is completely different, but then in some ways, it's totally its own thing. I love Barbara in 1990. I mean, she's over the top, but in 68, she's just like a lump of meat. I mean, she passes out in the beginning, and like passes out on the couch, and then she moves and passes out somewhere else, and she just faints. Like,
Right.
I mean, like she's the worst. And of course, Tony Todd is amazing. I mean, he's absolutely flawless. And Tom Tolles as the bad guy, Harry Cooper. I mean, it's one of the best, I think, like, I won't say villain, but just, unpleasant characters in a movie of the time. Tom Tolles was so incredible in that role.
Well, I think what makes him so difficult to process in that movie, well, and in the original as well, that character is, you watch the movie and you're like, oh, what a jerk, he's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. But if you really sit down and are honest with yourself and think about it, you have to wonder, like, well, what would I be doing in his situation?
Yeah,
and
he's not necessarily
so
wrong,
tough. Right?
But he is kind of a
D-word. He's awful. But
yeah.
You got to wonder in that situation, would I be awful?
Yeah. And, like, maybe it would have been better for everybody to go down into the basement.
Yeah.
Of course, there ended up being a zombie in the basement, but
That's
whatever. Yes. So as far as the end, I don't know, this kind of bridges the gap between the two movies, but, like, do you guys prefer the 1990 ending? I mean, they're both downers, like huge downers. But I think 1990 is a little less of a downer because, Mr. Cooper kind of gets his comeuppance, and Barbara, lives and goes off to torture zombies or whatever. But
if I'm going to watch, if I just want to watch like a cool movie, I'm going to watch this version, the 1990 version. But as far as being a really mind-blowing, good, significant movie, the original is the winner.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, yeah, you can't even really argue that just because of what it was and what it means to the medium. But like the 1990 one is this just great, cool horror movie. And like you said, Barbara is kind of over the top girl power, but it's awesome. Like, it's so cool to watch. And Tony Todd is just this hunk of masculine smoking awesomeness. And
he's so together and
yes,
firm and confident, even though he has no idea what the hell is going on or what to do about it. He's like, well, somebody's got to take charge,
Yes, he's decision maker, even though, like, who knows what the decisions should be, but we're doing this.
But he's kind of like, well, we've got to do something. We can't stand here and scream and flail our arms in the air. So let's make a plan. Let's come up with something. And he just plays that role so well. And obviously, like Tony Todd, his role is Candyman, but this is one of his best performances.
Yeah.
I think it was very, deep and honest performance. I love it. So I love this movie. I love them both.
Any other thoughts about the 1990 Night of the Living Dead, you guys?
I don't have much recollection of it. I saw it, but it's been 30 years probably.
Yeah,
we have a group of not massive horror fans. So
This wasn't the horror movie I thought you would start with. But...
Yeah, right.
I got another one, but
Right.
I think much less. Well, actually, I have two other ones. But one of them, I think not many people have seen, but we'll see.
Oh, well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, that brings it back around to me. Into that.
Hey, whoa! Oh my God!
Joe Crow, what are you doing here?
Speaking of masculine smoking awesomeness,
It's Joe Crow.
you guys. I apologize for being so late. But nobody is talking about in 1990. Nobody is talking about I touched myself.
It's because it's a PG-13 panel, Joe Crow.
All I want to remember about 1990 is I touched myself.
You guys told me I had to
Why
behave.
do you have Big Jim while you're talking about I Touch Myself, Divinal's hit single?
This is all Judge Reinhold's fault.
Damn it, Judge Reinhold.
Well then.
Hey.
Well,
And he's gone.
now I have to follow that. All right. Well, that's okay because I'm ready with my next pick. Here we go. If I can line this up. The swamp is my world. It is who I am. It is what I am. I was once a man. I know the evil men do. Do not bring your evil here, I warn you. Beware the wrath of Swamp Thing. Okay, so in 1990, on the USA Network, we got one of the most ridiculous but simultaneously most awesome comic book adaptations of all time. While it wasn't technically related to the movies that had come out, it did feature Dick Durock, the star of those movies, in the Swamp Thing costume. This was a weekly show that I was 100% addicted to. I loved it at the time. I couldn't get enough of it. And I think for some reason, it's paired up with another USA show called Werewolf in my mind, even though they were years apart. But this Swamp Thing, when I was a little kid, the original Swamp Thing movie came on HBO all the time and scared the heck out of me. To me, it was a horror movie, which is fitting because it was directed by Wes Craven. But, you know, now as an adult, I recognize that it's a comic book adaptation with horror elements. But when I was a kid, it was straight up terrifying. And then the second movie came out, and it was just lame. It was terrible. I hated it. Even as a kid, I thought it was awful. But then the show started, and it was this different level of storytelling. And looking at it now, yeah, it's campy and it's low budget, but I don't care because I absolutely love this show. They brought Dick Durock back to reprise his role in the best Swamp Thing suit out of all of those, things at the time. Kari Wuhrer was in season 2, which, quite frankly, anything she's in, I'll watch. I don't care. But the star of the show, Mark Lindsay Chapman, as Anton Arcane, in the craziest character to appear on television ever in the history of television. It was his show. Every single episode, because Dick Durock's in his Swamp Thing, gear, kind of lumbering around and looking menacing. Every once in a while, he'd do some swamp business. But Mark Lindsay Chapman was just chewing scenery 22 minutes straight. He was absolutely incredible. And the show also had guest stars, of the era. but you had Wolfman Jack running a carnival. You had Adam Curry from MTV. You had Terry Funk, Kevin Nash, and El Gigante showing up. And then finally, we're going to continue a theme that started earlier in this panel. Ray Wise, who played Alec Holland in the original Swamp Thing, showed up on the show not as Alec Holland, but as a crazy guy who's convinced that he and Swamp Thing are aliens. This show was campy and weird, and like, to me, the height of USA programming for the 90s, where that channel was kind of taking some risks and doing some interesting things on a budget, I guess. And for me, being 13, 14 years old at the time, it just hit a sweet spot for me. I absolutely loved the show. And the last thing I'll say before I let it go to you guys to sort of share your memories, where Swamp Thing became the greatest television show of all time is where they took the annoying kid that was in the first 12 episodes, because they felt like they wanted it to be more of a sort of family accessible show. So they threw in that little kid that so many shows had that they felt needed to be the viewpoint for the viewers. Well, the annoying kid, Anton Arcane, hired South American child slavers to kidnap this child. They kidnapped him, and he never showed up on the show again. That was the end of that character. He was gone. So what a great solution to a problem. So do you guys, obviously you guys remember this show, but were you watching it at the time? Do you have fond memories of USA's Swamp Thing?
I remember that it existed, and I probably watched a couple episodes, but it was not my jam, sad to say, at the time.
They advertised it a lot when I was watching wrestling, primetime wrestling on USA, and that's pretty much my memory of it. I never watched the show.
I didn't have, in 1990, we didn't have cable till I was older. It was a luxury.
Yeah, I think I caught a couple episodes, but I don't know why. You'd think that I would.
What? I thought you, of all people, would be the one that was like, yes, this show's awesome.
I was real weird when I was 14.
Yeah.
Well, who wasn't?
I just had discovered boys, and so I was just like,
much more important than Swamp Thing.
yes.
You're wrong. Boys
like,
are not more important than Swamp Thing.
This.
I was like a huge dork until like I turned 14, and then I was still a huge dork, but I was like super boy crazy for like 2 years, and then I like got my dorkness and my boy craziness to line up together.
Mark Lindsay Chapman could have given you everything you needed.
Probably.
Sounds like a serial killer or a
yeah.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it totally does. Well, I loved this show, and I think anybody from the Classics track watching this panel right now is probably just adoring the fact that it came up. You can get the entire series relatively cheap on Amazon, but I will say this, the first 12 episodes are not great. When I revisited it a few years ago, I was like, ooh, this is not, because you know how stuff you loved when you were a kid, you go back and watch it, and sometimes it's not quite as good as you remember. Yeah. If you power through those first 12 episodes, it gets dark and weird. And like I said, it's the Mark Lindsay Chapman chewing scenery show. So I recommend it to really anybody who might be watching this panel. You're probably going to dig it.
It's true.
All right, that brings us back to Noel.
Well, don't feel bad, because you're not going to be the only one probably this round who will be the only person who really remembers this fondly. So I am one of 17 people, I think, who saw this movie in the theater opening night. It is a sequel to what is a beloved musical dramatic film from 6 years earlier. And it stars my favorite artist of all time, which is Prince Rogers Nelson. Graffiti Bridge was released in 1990, and it's a movie. It's a sequel. It's a sequel to Purple Rain. It's very different from Purple Rain, and
and
it's almost
purified in the water.
It's almost universal. Yeah, nobody jumps in the waters of not Lake Minnetonka, but it's universally panned pretty much by every critic, and I kind of just presumed I probably had nostalgia for it when I was a kid. I went back and watched all of Prince's live action movies years later, in order, thinking Purple Rain's going to be the greatest, and then Under the Cherry Moon, and then Graffiti Bridge is going to be terrible. And I actually feel that way in reverse now, because Graffiti Bridge is everything about it is so tongue-in-cheek. Everything about it is so deliberate. It's obviously shot on the soundstage. Like all the sets are like matte paintings and like neon everywhere, and it's really beautiful. Like Prince pretty much directed this all himself, even though I don't think he even gets primary credit for it. It's got a fantastic soundtrack with a few exceptions. I'm not going to mention the title track because it's one of the worst Prince songs ever. It's not a lot of his big hits. Thieves in the Temple was the big hit from it, and Tavon Campbell's Round and Round, which a lot of people don't realize was essentially a Prince song sung by like a 15-year-old kid. And technically it pretty much has two soundtracks, I count, because I count The Times Pandemonium, which came out also in 1990, as a second soundtrack, because several of the songs, because the movie was initially conceived as a vehicle for Morris Day and the Time. It wound up becoming a sequel to Purple Rain, kind of in hindsight, which is why it feels so much different than that movie. But yeah, I was so obsessed with Prince when I was 15 years old that I was there opening night to see that movie in an almost empty movie theater.
Ouch.
Yeah, my Prince obsession didn't start that early. I obviously was aware of him, and I on MTV, you can't get away from him on MTV. I was a fan, but I wasn't the fan that I am now. So I've seen the movie, and you're right. I think it's much more self-aware than Purple Rain. But we've got a time limit here, folks. So we've got to move on to Rebeccah. What is your second pick?
So it's so hard to choose, of course, but I'm going to go with my beloved Back to the Future Part 3.
Yes.
It's my favorite Back to the Future movie. I can't help it. I think it's just I have a soft spot in my heart for Doc Brown's love interest, Clara Clayton, not Clara Barton. That's a totally different person. Mary Steenburgen is she's a princess, and she can do no harm. She was the absolute perfect choice for that role. They were just, the chemistry between them was so adorable. And then, of course, setting it in the Old West. And of course, reprising roles of Biff and learning about Marty's family history with Seamus and the McFly clan, and it was just how could you not have a good time watching that movie? Whenever it's probably the one that's on TV most frequently, or at least the one that I see on TV most frequently, because of course it wasn't as critically acclaimed as the first two. But if it's on, I'm watching it. Like, it's just such a feel-good, happy, funny kick in the pants. And from what I've read, it has like zero credibility when it comes to like what actually happened in that year in 1980.
I would imagine.
Like any part of it at all. But that's okay, because we can have a willing suspension of disbelief for Back to the Future movie.
It's a fantasy movie.
It is. I mean, it's a sci-fi movie. It's what it is. They mixed all the genres. You got the comedy, and you got the romance, and you got the sci-fi, and you got the western. They threw
it's actually like one of the biggest steampunk movies ever made, technically.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's plenty of steampunk people out there that are doing a Clara Clayton. Next Dragon Con. Getting ideas. But
I think in recent years, I've come to the conclusion that I think it's actually the best Back to the Future movie as far as being like a good, well-made movie.
Yeah.
I think it's the best one.
I'll jump on board.
It's probably my favorite of all of them.
That final chase scene with the being on the train and trying to get up to 88 miles per hour by using the colored logs You remember that with the green?
It's intense. It's intense. That whole scene, out of all of the like, time is a necessity. We got to get this done in this certain amount of time. Things. I think that's the most effective scene of the whole trilogy.
Mm-hmm. And then it really makes you question how old Doc Brown really is, dangling off the side of a train to grab.
Yeah. He's
got
fit.
the most touching ending of the three, too.
He's a fit fella.
He is, for sure. But yeah, I do just such great memories of that film. I love it.
All right, Arian, second pick. What you got?
So much like Noel, I have a sequel to a movie that came out 6 years prior that also did not do as well as its original predecessor, which is Gremlins 2.
That was on my list too.
Which features one of the greatest character names ever, Dr. Cushing Catheter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And much like Graffiti Bridge, it's a much more self-aware movie than the first.
It's true. It has fun with itself and the genre, and is a good time, and I love it. I think that possibly because of that, and it's self-referential and self-aware, that in certain ways, obviously, it's not as good as the first Gremlins, but I enjoy it more.
I think it's as good in a different way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Fun times. I like it anyway.
They had predicted smart buildings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yep.
Gizmo? You know who voiced Gizmo?
Howie Mandel in both movies.
Right into Bobby's World, which was also 1990.
And given the current state of the world, I think we can all look to Howie Mandel as an example of how we should be behaving.
Don't touch each other.
Be a germaphobe.
All right. Well, I hate to give Gremlins 2 such short shrift, but we got to wrap it up, which means, Nicole, what is your final pick for 1990?
My final pick was going to be my first pick, but I went with something that was a little more popular. Frankenhooker.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Almost my
I adore Frankenhooker. Now, I did not see it in 1990. I don't know when the first time I saw it was. But it is, I wasn't ready for Frankenhooker in 1990.
Nobody was.
It is a perfect, bizarre comedy. If you have not seen Frankenhooker, my 30-second recap is unemployed mad scientist who failed out of medical school is dating a chubby girl. He invents a remote-controlled lawnmower. There's a horrible accident. She is killed. He is only able to salvage her head, which he then puts in a cryogenic thing that doesn't really exist. And then to be able to rebuild her, he goes and picks up hookers, and then he invents super crack. That's the movie's words, not mine. Super crack. Gives it to these hookers. They explode, because that is what the super crack does. They explode into very convenient puzzle piece-like parts, which he then takes, sews together. So now we've got parts of ladies of all. It's a very diverse movie, honestly. It celebrates diversity, because ladies of all races and all kinds, and he sticks them all together. And he puts what's her name? Elizabeth. He puts her head on there, played by Patty Mullen, who is phenomenal. And then he reanimates her, and for the rest of the movie, all she says is lines that you've heard the hookers, or we're not supposed to say hookers anymore, the sex workers have said throughout the movie. So she's like, hey, want a date? Got any money? And her face does this crazy thing. I love Frankenhooker. I have cosplayed Frankenhooker a couple times. I always cosplay Frankenhooker at the end when she's wearing the lab coat, because otherwise she's just in a bra and a skirt. But I did get drunk enough at one Dragon Con to take off the lab coat and the wig and just walk around like a crazy woman in a purple bra. That was a fun year. and also very big boots, like big boots.
If I'm remembering right, wasn't there a VHS release where you pressed the box and it said "Want a Date"?
Yep.
Yes,
that was one of our most popular boxes when I worked in the video store. It was at least 3 times a day I would hear "Want a date." I
would probably murder someone to have one of those. And I don't collect VHS. Like I'm not, I like movies to watch them. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I love Frankenhooker. It's hysterical and it's absolutely bonkers. And of course, I love the ending when Jeffrey kind of gets his comeuppance.
Yeah. Let me throw this concept at you real quick. NECA Frankenhooker action figure with a box that has a sound chip in it that says "Want a Date."
Yep.
I would pay almost all the money for that. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't even be like I would probably sell important things for that.
Not necessarily your kidneys.
No, but somebody's. I mean,
she would clearly give a sex worker super crack, and when she blew up, she would take her
grab
kidneys.
the kidney. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Because she would blow up in a very sort of clean, convenient way. There's some great like exploding head scenes. It's so good. I love that movie. So if you have not seen Frankenhooker, go. I don't even know. I've got it on DVD. I'm sure you can stream it somewhere. It's 2020, but it is a very, very fun, very insane, wonderful movie. And one tiny piece of trivia: the chick that plays the neighbor in Basket Case. If anybody remembers Basket Case,
of course, Belial.
The sex worker. Yeah, so the sex worker that lives next door in the apartment next door to Belial, and oh my god, my brain is blanking.
I can't remember his name.
The
either.
not deformed brother.
No, nobody cares about him.
Anyways, her name is Casey in Basket Case, and she has an appearance in Frankenhooker and Basket Case too. Bless you. It's like this whole
it's the Belial
universe. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's the Belial cinematic universe.
Yes, and if you haven't seen Basket Case, also see that.
Before Joe Crow pops in here to play us off like Keyboard Cat, I just want to say thank you for watching this panel. We appreciate it. Ooh, yeah.
Snap it to his friend Jim.
There he is.
Oh,
what just happened?
Bye, Joe.
Did we just boot Joe Crow out? This panel is going to keep going.
Oh, hi.
There he is.
There he is.
Guys, thank you so very much, Rebeccah, Noel, Arian, Nicole, Dave. This was great. Speaking of exploding hookers, we are gonna, like we do every year, we're gonna put you guys on 17 other panels, and so forget your families, forget work, forget responsibilities, and thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Joe Crow. Thank you, Classics Track.
Thanks for having me.
See you very, very soon.
Word up.
Bye.